to invite Peter to make the announcement for the other speakers, please. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Resident Matt, fellow Rotarians and guests, I would like to introduce our speaker, John Gilmour. He is a local boy. I was going to say he was born and raised here, but he just told me that he was born in Quesnel.
That's right.
So, but he's been here all his life. He's definitely an active North Vancouver community leader. He's been he's the Vice President of Development for a development company, and he's also the President of the fundraising campaign for the North Vancouver Museum and Archives. Let me present John Gilmour.
Thank you very much for that. And okay, so the slide. Oh, this is okay. Great. So I'm really excited to be here, especially since I had my first cup of coffee in the last 2 months. And so I'm really excited. And I do always wake up at 6 a.m., but you know, so I'm not new to being an early riser, but with the caffeine, it's definitely got me even more excited. So I'm here with a couple of other gentlemen who I would like to also introduce right now. And Terry Hood, who's running the slideshow, and Terry prepared this slideshow here, so I have to give him a lot of credit for doing that. And Terry is an appointed commissioner with the North Vancouver Museum and Archives Commission, and he's been a leader in the field of regional community tourism planning and tourism indigenous education program for 35 years. And he's a founder and ex-general manager of Link BC Network, an organization that connects and supports 20 college and university tourism hospitality programs in British Columbia. And he's coordinated the development of a number of tourism learning resources, including cultural heritage tourism, a handbook for community champions, Aboriginal cultural tourism, business planning guide, and transforming communities through tourism. So as principal of the North Shore Project Learning Consultancy, he has managed numerous tourism strategic plans, tourism development projects for both Canadian and international clients. A graduate of Simon Fraser University, Terry has held faculty positions at the University of British Columbia and Kaplan University. So he's got an extensive background. He's now retired, but I think he's maybe more active than pretending to be retired. Yes, exactly. And Wesley Wenhardt, he's our new director, our incoming director of the North Vancouver Museum and Archives. And he's hired by the City of North Vancouver and is part of the commission and the Friends Society, which I'm president of the Friends Society as well, which is the charitable group that can give tax receipts for donations and all that kind of thing. And Wesley's a Vancouver resident, but just moving from Seattle recently, where he headed up a museum down there. But he's pleased to have been selected to take the baton as the director from Director Nancy Kirkpatrick, who together with the North Van Museum and Archives team and the Friends Society has laid a solid platform to launch the new Museum of North Vancouver in Lower Lonsdale. Wesley has worked opening museums, science centers, IMAX theaters around the world, and is thrilled to come back and working with the District of North Vancouver and the City of North Vancouver on this project. So I'm pleased to have them as well, and Terry and I will tag team on the slide presentation. But the first thing we wanted to do is recognize the valuable contribution of Don Evans, who I know you all know, and sadly passed away earlier this year in Peru after hiking on his way down from Machu Picchu. Don was a commissioner of the North Van Museum and Archives and co-chair of the commission. He also was the chair of our fundraising capital campaign project when we were proposing to put the museum in the pipe shop, that old heritage building behind the Tap and Barrel in Lower Lonsdale. Yeah, will be sorely missed, not only with the Rotary Club, where he was, I think it was called the director or the head of the BC region, right? And so amazing, and also the Heritage Museum, the Railway in Squamish and the museum. So yeah, we miss him. I wasn't able to go to his memorial but in Squamish because it was my wife and I's 30th wedding anniversary. So I didn't want to cancel that on my wife. Otherwise she would be able to now.
Right now, they are 31st.
So anyway, yeah, we'll always remember him, and he will be honored in the new museum at Lonsdale as well. His name will be there somewhere. I'm not sure exactly how, but he will be remembered there. So moving on.
Thanks, John, and a very special thank you to Rotary West Vancouver Sunrise for inviting us. Wouldn't mind perhaps, Wes, if you might want to say a couple of welcoming comments or introductory comments before we start the information we're going to share with you today.
Well, I just want to say I think this project has been in the works a long time, and I really feel sincerely it takes a community to open a museum, and it is a community museum. So I just really want to say I'm thrilled to be here, as John mentioned, and to work with the team at the North Vancouver Museum and Archives have really laid a great foundation. With John's work on the Friends, and we've got some good news that maybe he'll announce maybe at the end of the program from our friends at CN, to some upcoming successes, and Terry's work with the community. I'm just really excited to be here. And I'd love to become a more active member of Rotary. I was in Tacoma Rotary 8 member, which was the largest club in the world. Well, they said it was pretty large. I wouldn't quite say the world, but it just amazed me the number of hours that you commit to community projects. I couldn't keep up because I was doing the startup of a museum, but it was like 2 to 4 hours a week. And we hosted a couple fundraising events for Rotary at our venue, and they were very successful. So thank you for inviting us today, and would like to just open up a line of communication to get you involved in the new museum, have you all down maybe for a function, maybe a breakfast there. I know it's hard to go remote, but we could work on it. But thank you for the opportunity to have Terry and John and myself here. Thank you again. I look forward to seeing you in about a year in the new location.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Wes. So, I'd like to say how excited we all are about this community building project we're about to, well, not about to commence, that we're well along the road towards achieving. We're all volunteers as well. Well, Wes is, but we are, and that's why we appreciate, I think, doubly the kind of volunteer work that Rotary members do. And we got involved, I got involved personally, because I really believe, we all believe in the importance of museums. And museums of today, not so much the museums of what some people think as these cultural attractions of yesteryear, the dusty exhibits, the displays that are quite static. We're about to build something that's much more alive than that, and will be appreciated by residents and visitors alike, and get the community actively engaged. Can you all see the screen yet, Chris? You're conscious of that, yes. We're ready to, thank you, maybe I will. We're ready to move. The smallish North Vancouver Museum was in Presentation House for many years. It closed a year ago, and just slightly over a year we'll be opening up in the facility that I'll explain a bit to you. By the way, John and I are going to tag team on this one. We'll take about 15 minutes to go through this presentation to give you a really good overview of what we're doing, and then we can open up if there's time for some just general discussion and questions. Our offices, our staff team, we've got a great group of professionals working for the museum, now currently operated out of Lynn Valley at the Community History Center, which is a building that was extensively renovated and now houses the archives about 10 or 11 years ago by the District of North Vancouver. We have an interesting and sometimes a challenging governance model working with the district and the city. We're very careful to make sure the needs of both municipalities are being served. And we've also had informal discussion with West Vancouver, because we really believe it's just like tourism. Tourists don't care where the boundaries are. They're interested in the entire North Shore. We work closely, as you'll hear in a minute, with the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and really 3 municipalities. So hopefully down the road a bit, this will be a North Shore-wide effort, because you have so many stories to tell here in West Vancouver as well. But amazing set of archives. It's one of our best kept secrets. We have over 50,000 archival photos. It's a great facility, and maybe that's where we could host a breakfast, Wes. We've got climate controlled storage facilities for the collection. You mentioned your efforts with rescue. We house the entire North Shore Search and Rescue records. And again, they haven't really been brought to life yet, but they will somewhat in the new museum. Maybe there's a link there. So I'm sorry, I was going to say. So the archives collects and protects this collection of really interesting artifacts. We have 2 warehouses filled with artifacts, and we've actually de-accessioned the museum term from about 30,000 items down to 12,000 in the last 2 years. Our professional curator has helped with that process. But these images just give a sense of what the stories can be brought to life and will be brought to life in the new museum. We have such a rich history here on the North Shore. There's Brian Adams down in the corner. Look at that steel deck being pulled out of the Capilano River a few years ago. And we're talking today mainly about our new museum facility, but it's important to let our community associates know that we'll be providing experiences over 5 different kinds of platforms. We now have just completed the 4th of about a dozen mobile exhibits. We go to the Delbert Community Center, or come just across the river to the new Capilano Center, which will be opening in a year or so. You'll see these mobile exhibits that are very professionally done, and they feature different stories of the North Shore. We did that really listening carefully to what the District of North Vancouver was saying was useful for them, and those have been really popular. We'll continue to run the Community History Center and perhaps grow those programs. Our online experiences are becoming more and more interesting and sophisticated. Well worth a visit, NVMA.ca if you want to have a look. Right now we run the Shipyard Pals theatrical performance program with professional theater students down at Lonsdale Quay in the summertime. Very well received, and they bring to life the shipyards. Last year they also worked up in Lynn Headwaters. What were they doing, John? They were representing guides from 30 or 40 years ago. Can you recall?
Yeah, the shipyard, no, sorry, not shipyard, but they were mountaineering costumes from the 20s.
Yeah, and I think that script was developed in conjunction with North Search and Rescue as well.
It's all about mountaineering. So they do 2 things. One is shipyards and one is mountaineering.
And then last but not least, the new museum facility. So I think what we're excited about, we'll share these stories with more people than ever before. I've learned a lot over the last couple of years going through this exhibit development process. We've hired a company called Key Design Spaces. They won awards across North America for museum exhibit design, and they've been working really closely with us and our associates to build what you'll see in another year. But it's really an opportunity for this organization to strengthen and inspire our community by exploring the past, present, and future of North Vancouver and its people. And this, we hope, in fact, we're confident will become a really dynamic hub where things happen. But in this space, so that was 2 years ago. That was the hole down at Carrie Cates Court, Esplanade, right at kitty corner from the Polygon Gallery. And slowly but surely, it's been taking shape. And this is about a month and a half old. I need to take another shot later today, and you'll see some of the cladding now in the building. So this is where the new museum will be. We're delighted with the location, very centrally located in the new Shipyards District. And we couldn't be more pleased because we're right next to the sea bus, and that's really important with a cultural attraction of this sort. We're also kitty cornered from the Polygon Gallery, and we facilitated 2 meetings with the staff of our museum and archives group and the Polygon Gallery. And we're very different organizations, and that's great because together we're starting a very critical mass of interesting things to do for the shipyards district, and people will come. They're already starting to come. If any of you have been down to the Friday night markets to see how packed that is. And the city of North Vancouver has now hired 5 people to work on that whole area, to animate it, to bring it to life. I met with one of the new managers yesterday, came from West Vancouver, and lots of great things planned. I'll tell you a bit more about it. But we're also right on the Spirit Trail, and we're excited about that because, as you'll see in a minute, we're working closely with both nations, and there's some real opportunity for Indigenous stories and interpretation that will be, I think, really appreciated as well, and are important to work through. I'm going to turn this over again to John. John can tell you a little bit about the building space and what we're excited about that's going into the entrance of our new facility.
So this is the rendering that was done by the graphic designers of the Polygon. Where this is Promenade at the Quay is the name of the development. It's completely sold out, and we are getting 16,000 square feet on the ground floor facing Esplanade. So there's a ground floor also facing Harry Cates Court. And so this is, so we'll have access from Esplanade on the other side, and this is the lower level which will have access from Harry Cates Court, which is facing Lonsdale Quay, and beat around the world, and where they have that public market and so on. And there's a muse that goes up the side on the east side of the building, which takes you at a very shallow rise to the front entrance, where you'll see the streetcar stored. And speaking of the streetcar, here's some old shots of it, how it used to go up and down Lonsdale, up to Lynn Valley, the end of the line. There's a little old general store right at the end of Lynn Valley Road that you may have seen, called End of the Line. And that's where it also used to go. And then over towards, up through Pemberton Heights and up Capliner Road to pass where the suspension bridge is now. And that was those were the 3 main routes. And my father, who went to UBC years ago in the late 40s, early 50s, used to come over on the ferry and then take the streetcar to the top of Lonsdale. He was bringing his skis with him, and they would hike up Grouse Mountain. And I think they had a rope tow or a T-bar or pommel lift or something like that when he got up to where the cut is on the lower ski run on Grouse Mountain. And so this is how all those skiers got to Grouse Mountain back in the day. Can you imagine hiking, up Grouse Mountain? Now the streetcar, they were all killed off in I think around 1945, and this streetcar number 153 is the one that's actually now been put into the museum space. For a period of time, it was out in Chilliwack, and it was as a chicken coop. You see right here, this is kind of a small picture, but they turned it into a chicken coop, and it was getting in very poor condition. And I believe it also was served as a coffee shop just prior to the chicken coop thing, called the White Spot Cafe. And I'm just wondering whether that's the same as the White Spot Restaurant by Nat Bailey. I really don't know, but maybe the White Spot would be a good potential donor to the museum, I'm thinking. So it was fully restored, and it was stored about 25 years in Fenn Burdette Stadium in Mahan Park, underneath the bleachers, those concrete bleachers. And I had the pleasure of seeing it about 8 years ago when it was partially restored. The wheels were not, the trucks, these are called the trucks right here, the wheels underneath, and those were stored at Ferguson Moving and Storage over near the bottom of Mountain Highway for quite a long time. And so then the West Coast Railway Museum fully restored it after the museum was announced, and with Don Evans' help to restore it. And so you can see how it all so shiny looking now, and sitting in there, and it's now encased in a crate, a giant crate to protect it, so there's no dust or damage due to the construction. And so it's now sitting on its trucks and a section of track, a railway track there. And it was taken out of Burdette Stadium on about June the 30th. Then it went into Canada Day Parade on July the 1st, from Grand Boulevard down 13th, up Lonsdale to 17th, and down to Mahan Park again. And then the next day it was put in the museum building, and then now Polygon's able to put the storefront windows on to, and it will not be removable now that it's in here. And then you can see this is the Harbottle milk truck that used to deliver milk on the North Shore years ago. And the Friends Society members and they are heading that up. That's our float. So we walk in the parade handing out buttons and bookmarks. You'll see some bookmarks on some of these tables to people along the side. We used to throw candy, but we don't do that anymore. We do bookmarks and buttons. So this is, it was really exciting moment. Unfortunately, I was in Montreal for a family wedding, so I wasn't able to be in the parade. But
we're excited about this. I mean, it's going to be an iconic piece. Thanks, John. And you can see it's still waiting some of the finishing touches. I think they'll be in there, in that underneath that hoarding, working so that when we open a year from now, it's going to be terrific. They're also working. Our team is working on animating this space. It's not just going to be sitting there. There'll be opportunities for young people and regular museum visitors to have that experience come to life. We're not sure exactly in what way yet, but that's happening. And the city of North Vancouver's been great. They've really worked hard to, it's their artifact, it's their space that we're leasing, and we're delighted to have them as an active sponsor. So over the last 2 or 3 years, thanks to the Friends active involvement, we've been out in the community seeing what people would like to see in this new facility. And they've asked for a museum that's forward-looking, edgy. We say, what are some of the best museum experiences you've had in Canada or around the world? And we've been taking the bits and pieces of what will work for a medium-sized cultural attraction and adding hands-on activity, respectful of and includes First Peoples. We're building this new museum at a time of truth and reconciliation. We're building this museum at a time when we're really trying to build and nurture the relationships between our organization and the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh Nation. I've spent a lot of my career working with First Nations people, and I've said, here's the challenge. Make this an exemplary place and show how a community museum can work best with neighboring First Nations. So we haven't quite figured that out yet, but we're actually meeting next Monday with Kelseylan from Squamish Nation. We're happy about that. We've got one more slide to show them. It's a community hub. It's a gathering place. It includes a museum shop. It's helping us to prepare for change. Look at all the topical issues on the North Shore: traffic congestion, housing. There's a lot of topics that can be discussed in and around the museum. And more importantly, it's authentic. It tells our true story. Interesting listening to John talk about his father hauling those skis up. My wife's grandparents just lived across the river in Pemberton Heights, and they bought their lot in 1934 for $25. The house is still standing against all odds. So we listen, and this is what we're building. This is a floor plan of the space that John described a bit earlier. West Esplanade entrance, Harry Cates Court, Rogers Lane, which is now where all the buses will go, and the new B line, and then this muse or the lane on which the city is now looking at animating. We're excited about that. We're involved in those discussions. But I think from my perspective, and I've been involved with tourism planning and developing the frameworks for destination marketing organizations all over the province, I'm excited about the location. And it's really a top-notch one. I mentioned our work with First Nations. When you come into our permanent gallery, you'll walk into this circle and you'll see the Squamish Nation stories and messaging that they've helped create. We've been working with Chief Janice George and Carleen Thomas and the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. That will be one of the first things you see. That's right in this spot here. We'll have 3 broad themes. This is in our permanent gallery. Excuse me. That's this space right here. We'll have curatorial space here with an opportunity for people to see part of our collection. A temporary gallery, we call it a feature gallery here. We've got a big open space there called Flex Space with a patio, which can be rented for community events, and then there's the entrance space with the streetcar. I need that little laser pointer. So those are the main themes. You start to get to see, these are rough renderings, but you start to get to see how interesting it'll be and how 3-dimensional and interactive. A lot of video going to be This is a story that most people on the North Shore don't know about, and that's the residential school. And so we've been working with nation members to survivor stories, tastefully done and thoughtfully done with input from the nations. Our rich industrial history, the shipyards themselves, the logging, the creative community. There's a lot there. We're excited about that. This is a rendering from some other gallery, but our feature gallery, which will be a decent size, is going to have ever-changing exhibits. And I'm really excited. The first one, no surprises, appropriately going to focus on the shipyards area itself. We'll have some stories about the shipyards and the harbor, the working waterfront. Port Metro Vancouver is involved with John in the main gallery, but the first exhibit will be on the shipyards. The second one will be on the Sisters, the Lions, and that's in development right now too. And we're also, I hope, going to become more known for our programming than our great exhibits. And under Wes's leadership over the next year, we'll start to see what will work in terms of some of the community programs that have been suggested. Drop-in programs, programs for families, programs for adults, people that live in the neighborhood, but people from the entire North Shore. Again, those ones, I think this is some huge opportunities. We're working in partnership with like the North Shore Arts Council and other groups. Maybe working in partnership with the Rotary clubs. Who knows? Neighbors and newcomers. I think the professional people that we have designing these programs are really interested in making sure this is an accessible facility too. So some of the ideas that are going to be built upon: sensory-friendly times, dementia-friendly times, touch tours for the blind, and so on and so on. Working again to develop stories with the First Nations communities, and building on what we already do well, which is working with the K-12 school system, but adding more for adult programming, like the theater performers.
If you could just back up that one slide there, in the Canada Day parade, the shipyard Sam and Sal, what they do is she's got the big pliers, and she takes a rivet and then she tosses it to the rivet catcher, and so that's cone thing that she's got is actually a rivet catcher that they made when they use when they build the ships. So it's really a fun thing to watch.
Mm-hmm. And very well received. The visitors when they're down there right now really enjoy the show. So some of the work that I've been happy to volunteer on is really all about community partnerships, community engagement. That's why we're so pleased to be here with this Rotary. 5 minutes? 3, 4?
6 minutes.
3, okay. I'll go quickly. Thank you. So we've been working with our neighbors in the shipyards, and again, the whole idea is that we can attract more and more visitors from Vancouver over to the North Shore to our new location. Just last year, Lonely Planet picked up the story about the developing area and said what a great place it is. Polygon Gallery and the new museum was mentioned. This is the new Shipyards Commons area that just opened a couple of weeks ago. And Capilano University's developing a site called CapU Lonsdale. We'll be opening this fall. We just started discussions with them about how some student learning activities can support the museum and vice versa. I just took this shot with Wes a couple of days ago. This is now inside a corridor leading to the restrooms in the Shipyards Commons area. And do any of you know what these things are? Might be. It's a beautiful art installation. Because we're running out of time, I won't let you guess. These are patterns from the Borough Dry Dock. We have 4,000 of them in our collection. There's 90 of them that were provided to the Shipyards Commons. We need to get interpretive plaques up and whatnot, but I call it a value-added corner where all of a sudden you discover these, and it's something you can learn and realize what a vibrant industrial past the area had. So we'll work together with these groups and say, how do we really promote the North Shore history and the experiences in the new museum? And last but not least, our Friends Association. So the logos look the same, that's why I put the little red oval around it to highlight it, is taking a lead on a fundraising campaign.
That's me with the black hat there.
There we go. He doesn't like his facial features to be perfect. So to cap off,
Yeah. So this is an exciting project. It's really building the community in that Lower Lonsdale area and for North Vancouver and the North Shore. And we have a capital campaign going on right now, which we're 80% achieved our goal of 2.5 million for community fundraising. We've already got about 6.1 million committed from the federal government and the city of North Vancouver. And that's the additional 2.5 million we're raising, which we've reached about 900,000 now. After 2 days ago, CN announced 100,000 for their 100th anniversary. So that was super exciting and continues our momentum. So that money's being used for full interactive exhibit space, outfitting new museum spaces on an ongoing basis, enhancing the community planning, and launching and promoting the new museum. So you can see how it's broken down, the government donations, community funding. So we've got a cabinet and a fund development committee working on that to get us to the goal line next year. So we have regular updates, keeping the community informed, and these come out quarterly, I believe. And so if you're interested to support the museum, stay up to date, subscribe to the museum update online. You can register your name, spread the word to others, and arrange for meetings. We can do other presentations like this on an individual basis and on a group basis. And so basically, who do you know who might like to receive or attend the presentation? So get involved, speak with other members of your club that may not be here. Friends or staff would be able to come and speak with you, and experience interests may have the biggest impact. So that basically concludes our presentation, and I thank you for your
attention. Can you come, Wes? Could you please also come over? I would like to say thank you to the whole team. Yeah. Yeah, Esther, please. Yeah.
We would like to thank you so much for coming today. Wow, it is so exciting. Those museums and new museums shouldn't be called museums, but anyway, we have made a donation towards the end of polio, which is Rotary International's big funding push. Just about there, just two countries now where there's active polio. So
that's encouraging.
anyway, so this is a letter.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Great, thank
Thanks a lot.
Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thanks, Terry.
Also, I forgot to tell the John's son, Dan Gilmour. You know the Dan Gilmour. Dan Gilmour working as my assistant almost 8 years. We know each other for a long time. And Dan just got engaged last weekend. And congratulations, John, for your son engagement. Yeah. And also, one more thing. There is a military organization, it calls RUSI, and our president of the RUSI, Cathcart, is working on one project to put a statue to memory of the shipyards workers during the Second World War. And they talked with the city of North Vancouver in the past, but they are still looking for the location to put this statue. Maybe I can connect you guys to be, it's related with the Second World War, and present the military and the people who is working, especially for the female workers in the shipyards. They work thousands of people. And maybe best, I think it's a good idea to connect to the Calcutta. And also, the other thing, maybe if there is a chance to do something with a little bit with the Rotary in your museum, also think about keeping your mind, because we have 5 clubs in North Shore, 2 North Vancouver club, 2 West Vancouver, and the Bowen Island. For the maybe if there is any opportunity, we can be a little something, little Rotary over there. I don't know, because, yeah.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, our two initial clubs on the North Shore go back upwards of 70 years. And they were instrumental in a lot of development in North and West Vancouver with stories to tell. The first ambulance in West Vancouver was by our evening Rotary Club, fundraised by selling apples door to door, you know, stories like that. So I think there could be a fit for certainly the 4 immediate North Shore ones and possibly Bowling. The other thing that I'd like to think about is whether if there's anything that we can contribute to with some money toward the recognition of Don Evans. Because
Yeah.
when we did the Celebration of Life, we saw how much more that he was so modest, we didn't know he did. And you guys can appreciate that, but it would certainly be nice to have a nice little memorial for him.
That's a really kind thought, and I know around the commissioners' table, we've discussed appropriate recognition. I don't know how far that discussion
Keep
has
us in
come
mind.
along, but it would be terrific to collaborate with you on that. And the logical spot, we think, is somewhere in or around that streetcar.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense.
And
Yeah.
it's high profile, but he definitely.
And we may be able to involve the district as well.
And it will be really nice for the Don, will be happy to his name and the Rotary
Absolutely.
will recognize.
It
It just
It's a
feels like the right
perfect-
thing to do.
Yeah.
He was a very generous and true gentleman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you again, thank you very much. Meeting adjourned, thank you.